Hey, I'm Serenity and this is my channel, and today we're joined here by Nebula. She's a very big girl, so she's behind me, and Ginger is over here. And today we are going to be doing a video that I did last year as like a wrap-up of my year, kind of like a Spotify Wrapped situation, except so much better than whatever that was this year, and that is all my favorites of 2024. So I have 8 different categories, and we're just going to go over 8 different like subsections of my favorite things from 2024. They're mostly media things, actually. That way you can get to know me a little better as we go into the new year. Grab a snack, grab a blanket, grab a drink, and let's get into it. So, starting strong with podcasts. I did not know I listened. No, I know I listen to a lot of podcasts. I just like to watch them, if that makes sense. I like watching the video forms. So, my longtime favorite, the first podcast I ever got into in 2018, 2019 when it started, is Mile Higher by Kendall Rae and her husband. This is like a true crime, alien, mystery show. I really like it. I listen to it in the background while I do schoolwork, and it just flies by. The next favorite podcast is the drama podcast, which is like TikTok drama sort of thing, is Do We Know Them? So I found this podcast last year while I was on bed rest from breaking my ankle. Whole other story. And I love this show. I look forward to it twice a week. I am a member of their Patreon. They just recap the craziest drama on TikTok, and they sent me down the Ash Trevino rabbit hole, which great, I'm not off that anymore. My favorite true crime podcast that I got into this year is Rotten Mango by Stephanie Sue. I got into this when I had food poisoning and I couldn't leave the bed for a week in January. So I just started watching like 1 or 2 of her videos on YouTube, and now I've seen all of them. I haven't listened to all of the podcasts because she didn't record videos for all of them, but I've watched every single one. And she tells a case in such an interesting way while still being very considerate of the victims, which I appreciate. Lastly, a podcast I listen to watch on the weekly is The Sesh, which is also Kendall Rae's podcast. And it's another like internet drama sort of podcast, but I like it. It's another thing I listen to in the background while doing schoolwork. My next category is my favorite authors of the year. So all the authors I mentioned last year still stand, and for a lot of it still stands. This is just this year's list. So my undergrad degree is Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies. That is my major, and my minor is Criminal Justice. So obviously I have to read a lot for school, a lot of articles, a lot of web journals, a lot of that stuff. So a lot of it I have to read about famous feminist scholars. So I have 2 that are my favorite from the readings I've done this year. The first is Bell Hooks. If you've never read anything by Bell Hooks, her book Feminism is for Everyone is such a great introduction book. It's kind of like the staple, I guess, if you will, and she writes in a very fluid way. But my other favorite, and I love her TED Talks and any of her speaking engagements, is Patricia Hill Collins. Amazing writer and amazing public speaker. So I have 2 newcomers to this year. I did not read as much as I did last year. I kept getting into book ruts. So the first newcomer is Liz Tomford, who does the Chicago like sports romance series. I always read book series out of order. I read the 3rd, 4th, 2nd, 1st book in the series, and we're waiting on the 5th one. She writes in a way that I constantly go back to passages, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And my second is Elise Silver. I hope I'm saying her first name right. She wrote the Off to the Races series and Wild Heart series, like the cowboy romances based in Canada. I've read all of them in January, so that was why she's on here. So my next person is what I call A Way with Words. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, basically that are memoirs. I love to listen to a memoir in the person's own words. So this year, Tara Westover, her book Educated is something I think everyone needs to listen to, especially if you value education. Oh my god, it is phenomenal, and I'll get more into the book in a minute. And lastly in this category is Quotable. That author is Trevor Noah. I quote Trevor Noah work so much. I loved him when he was hosting The Daily Show. If you ever want to know what the type of man I'm interested in, it's someone like Trevor Noah. That intellect, but also the humor. Yeah, but I quote one of his quotes that I'll get to in a second under the next category all the time. And the next category obviously is my favorite books of the year. My overall favorite book is Educated by Tara Westover. So it talks about growing up in Utah. Yeah, Utah, rural community. Her parents they never went to formal school. They never really learned how to read or write. They never were given a proper education. She had to learn how to read or write. She had to take the SAT on her own. She had to fund her own way into BYU. And it talks about her journey of her parents not valuing the government educational system and all the opportunities they can bring them, and then her all the way getting a PhD in England, and that whole journey of like discovering, oh, she actually is intelligent, and oh, this is what I was missed out on because my parents didn't give me a proper chance at life. I don't even think she has like a birth certificate, if I'm not mistaken. And this book, it took me about a good 6 months to get through because it's a long book and it's a heavy book, but it is one of the best books I've ever read. My favorite audiobook, again with the memoirs, is For the Brown Girls with Sharp Edges. It's another memoir and it's about growing up Latina and the experiences that are sort of faced. It's just a good memoir. So my favorite memoir, I keep saying memoir, but these past three are memoirs, is Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime. So it talks about growing up in South Africa under the apartheid state, and what I quote all the time, especially in my gender study classes, is this quote where he says, "The way my mother explained it, the traditional man wants a woman to be subservient, but he never falls in love with a subservient woman. He's attracted to an independent woman. He's like an exotic bird collector. He only wants a woman who is free because her dream is to put her in a cage." And that, like, really is a quote that comes out a lot that I think pertains to a lot of situations we see today. And he just had another book come out, so I'm excited to dive into that. And hearing him read his own book is great because he does like all the impressions of what he thought he sounded like as a child and all that. So a book I had to read for school, I had to read a lot of books for school this year, is Souls, a story about Southie based in Boston. It is about how South End, South E in Boston, well, South Boston and South End are two different things, but the South End in Boston, South E, was gentrified and how it dealt during the civil rights movement. It's a really interesting book because when I visited Boston, that was my favorite part of the city, is the South End. So to learn that it was gentrified and all these like cafes I was visiting and stuff weren't there 20-30 years ago, that was really interesting to me. And my favorite romance book, back to Liz Tomford, is The Right Move. I have reread this book like 3 times in the past couple months. There's something so raw about it, about infertility. It deals with infertility and people from 2 different lifestyles and how other people can hurt you so much that it hurts your next relationships. It's a really good book. I recommend it. So on to my favorite movies of the year. I went into my letterbox. There's nothing really stuck out to me, if I'm being honest. My hyperfixation, I think no one is surprised, is Wicked, okay? I love Broadway so much. I saw Wicked traveling on tour when I was like 10, 11, literally this month, because it popped up on my mom's Facebook timeline. That is when I started loving Broadway musicals. Wicked the musical has been playing non-stop. That we went and saw it a second time, and we might go see it a third time. It is so good. I will not be surprised if that soundtrack is on my Spotify Wrap next year. I will not stop listening to it. A funny movie was Deadpool and the Wolverine. I rewatched it the other day on Disney Plus. Still holds up. My favorite is Channing Tatum's character in it. How we can never understand his accent. I was dying laughing in that movie theater. And lastly, I rewatched the Harry Potter series this year, starting on an airplane when I was heading to the Midwest in October, and I just finished watching it that same week, like once I got back from my trip. The Harry Potter movies are a classic, besides what the original writer has, but the movies are a classic. So, okay, on to my favorite shows. I don't watch a lot of TV, if I'm being honest. I have a couple series that I watch, but I'm not sitting in front of the TV for hours a day. I'm doing that. I'm sitting at my desk working and then listening to YouTube in the background. My rewatch, which I'm watching right now, I just got to season 3, is Modern Family. I have a couple of series I rewatch over and over and over. Modern Family, Friends, Will and Grace are them. Right now I'm rewatching Modern Family. The new show that I started when I had food poisoning again in January was The Sex Lives of College Girls with Renee Rapp, which made me fall in love with Renee Rapp. That is a funny show. I watched it twice, and I think the next season comes out in January, hopefully. Reality TV. It's Hell's Kitchen. I'll watch any Gordon Ramsay show. I love watching him yell at people. This is something I will not ever give up. And I went back and watched I didn't realize that I missed season 22 while I'm also watching the new season, current season 23. I don't know why I love that show so much. Lastly, a binge watch for me that I have watched the 3rd season probably like 7 times through is Bridgerton. I watched Bridgerton when I got sick. I get sick like 3 times a year with a cold. And I find that there's a time where I actually am out of my routine that I watch things that I've been meaning to. So I watched all of Bridgerton. I watched season 2 first, then season 1, and then I waited for season 3. I will say I could do without season 1. I know, controversial, but anyone who asks if they should watch it, I recommend starting at season 2, then going back to season 1, especially since the 2 main characters in season 1 are no longer in the show. and then watching season 3. But I'm excited for the next season. It is worth the hype, and I mean, who does not love Jonathan Bailey? Okay, next category is favorite YouTubers. So the return YouTuber is Smoky Glow. She came back to posting after some personal issues in her life. I will watch any Smoky Glow video, especially her Vlogmas videos, so I'm excited she's back. The new diva who has entered the villa is Adam McIntyre. His drama videos, I don't even care about what's going on. I would just love to hear him talk about whatever tangent he goes on. Favorite vlogger is the same as last year, Lauren North. She lives in New York City, and I love learning about New York because I will never live in New York. The next category is true crime YouTuber. Kendall Rae is my favorite. She has been since I was 14, so 6, 7, 8 years now. Storyteller is Stephanie Sue. She can tell a case story so well, but she can also tell her like just drama stories so well in such an engaging way. Last two, we have a deep diver who will dive into a subject and give me a perspective I have never thought about, is Salem Tovar. Really love her, especially since she's a fellow Mexican lady. I really enjoy her videos. And lastly, a comedian is Josh Johnson. If you have not seen his Olympics like stand-up set, I was dying laughing that I showed it to my mom, who was also dying laughing when he talked about Reagan and like imitated her. We have 2 categories left that go hand in hand, so let's start with favorite songs. Broadway. New Money from The Great Gatsby, who is sung by Samantha Pauly, who was also in Six. Yeah, that song goes on and on and on in my head all the time. The song that I had on repeat, specifically on YouTube, is Ray's Oscar-winning Tears at the Royal Albert Theatre, I think. I listened to that song 52 times in a week, according to my YouTube like music rap. I love that song. So many people know I am a Swiftie. My favorite Taylor song of the year are 2 songs, okay? Either Peter from the Tortured Poets Department Anthology or Cassandra from the Tortured Poets Department Anthology. Peter Pan is my favorite movie. I love how she draws back to Cardigan in that one. Well, Peter Pan's my favorite Disney movie, kind of. My real favorite Disney movie is Emperor's New Groove. That's another story. And I also love Cassandra because I love mythology. I mean, I have 2 Greek goddesses on my neck. Country song. I love Beyonce. I'm not like in the Beehive because I don't know all her songs, so I don't want to give myself that title. I don't feel worthy of it. But her country album, Non-Stop, and my favorite right now is Spaghetti. Okay, I change every week, but Spaghetti, especially after her halftime on Christmas performance, is back on the rotation. It was never not on the rotation, it's just back on the repeat. My favorite rap song of the year is Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. I feel like that's a given. Or TV Off by Kendrick Lamar. I listen to a lot of rap music. I did not realize that until I got my Spotify Wrapped, but I listen to a lot of it. My favorite female rage anthem is either Poison Poison by Renee Rapp or History of a Man by Macy Peters. Just listen to it. It's great. And the sneaky link that like just snuck in there is another song that I found at 2 a.m. It's the Harvard Opportunes a cappella group's version cover of Snow Angel by Renee Rapp. I listened to that song 45 times in a week after listening to Oscar-winning Cheers. I'm not even kidding. It's so good for no reason. So lastly, we have my favorite albums of the year. So, The Secret of Us by Gracie Abrams. I listened to that on my flight to Boston in July. Cowboy Carter is a given. Okay, I had it on repeat. The Tortured Poets Department Anthology, again on repeat. Hi, Karma! And this is Karma. She's the dog that I named after a Taylor Swift song. Her sister's name is Chaos, which is a joke in itself. This is Holland. She's named after Tom Holland, mainly because I got her the year Spider-Man came out. Hey, colors! Okay, so TTPD, the anthology. That's another given. Now, my prediction for the Grammys is that Beyonce is going to sweep, and if she does not win Country Album, I will fight them myself over TTPD, even though I'm a Swiftie, because that album, oh my god, like Taylor is a singer and a songwriter, but Beyonce, she puts on a show. She's like beyond singer. She's an entertainer. I can't even, if she goes on tour, I don't care what I have to do, I'm gonna be there. Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter, it's everywhere. I was a big fan of her last album, Emails I Can't Send, and you know what, I may actually like that album a little more than Short and Sweet, but I did enjoy it. And last but not least, Benson Boone's Fireworks and Rollerblades. I got into this album during the summer, and that's really it. And that is all of my 2024 favorites. Let me know if I share any of my favorites with you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already as we go into this new year. My socials are linked down below if you want to follow me at all. You don't have to. And last but not least, that's the doggo picture of the day, and that's going to be this picture of Holland looking so cute. Because look at her, she's right there. Alright, love you, minute kisses, don't being stupid, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you